Sierney says he has problems getting in and out of his driveway, but officials from the city of Eau Claire say it is the residents' responsibility to remove snow that has been pushed onto their driveway by snowplows. The State Patrol says that during the cold weather months, all drivers should follow common sense precautions that will protect them and others on the road. For Update News with photographer Chelsea Emery, I'm Kelsey McMahon. Other publications in the area say that body art and massage facilities are seeing a higher increase in permits than other local businesses. In actuality, these entities are paying a proportionate amount of city fees. Temperatures are dropping, winter is right around the corner, and auto repair shops are entering their busy season. The shops are most active at this time mainly due to people not correctly preparing their vehicles for the winter season. The owner of Rick's Service Center, Sean Chang, says to make sure everything is working properly when it comes to your own vehicle. He says batteries not starting and windshield wipers freezing are the biggest problems for cars in the winter months.
Make sure that your windshields are nice and clean and clear before you take off, and make sure you're slowing down, depend on road conditions.
Lieutenant of the Wisconsin State Patrol, Jeffrey Lawrence, says they released safety tips on the Wisconsin government website under State Patrol. He says whether it is fog or heavy snow, there are a few important rules to follow.
Preparation, seatbelt, good driving habits, watch your speeds, traveling distances, clear windshields. The ability to see other vehicles is extremely important.
Lawrence says the number one thing out there when it comes to a change in weather is drivers have to change their speeds, as people drive too fast for winter conditions. The State Patrol says that during the cold weather months, all drivers should follow common sense precautions that will protect them and others on the road. For Update News with photographer Chelsea Emery, I'm Kelsey McMahon. The Health Chapter is a new combination of land use planning and improving public health through a built environment. The city would fund and create things like trail systems, new sidewalks, and safe routes to schools and parks. City Councilwoman Kathleen Mitchell says a plan like this looks at the impact on public health. It gives people the opportunity to exercise and be healthy.
We know that physical activity helps to reduce things like obesity, and that in turn improves public health.
Mitchell says the chapter contains an implementation plan where the health department and city officials will follow up on things like a health impact assessment and continue the health department inspections of rental properties in the area.
It's important for safety for renters, and it's important for keeping the neighborhood looking good, and when the neighborhood looks good, then the neighborhood is safe.
Mitchell says the goal is not to point out individual people to become healthier, it's getting the whole community involved.
If you look at this city right now, and you look at it on a weekend in our parks, you will have seen in the last few months no fewer than one run or walk every weekend.
For Update News with photographer Jenna Rowe, I'm Kelsey McMahon. President Kennedy's death was a traumatic event for the American people, and as Update News reporter Slade Tranel tells us, people still remember where they were on that tragic day. The death continues to rise after Typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines 2 weeks ago. Philippine officials say more than 5,000 victims have been accounted for. A majority of the bodies were found on islands of the eastern region, and fewer were found in the central and southern regions. Bodies are being buried in mass graves. Many of them have not yet been identified. There are over 1,000 people still missing. Egypt is in an official state of mourning after a series of violent events took place over the past week. The current military-backed president announced a 3-day mourning period on Wednesday to honor the death of 39 Egyptians. Political violence has taken place in the country since the authoritarian ruler Hosni Mubarak was ousted from office in 2011. In the past week, violence has included a suicide bombing, a freight train crash, and a senior security officer was killed by a gunman. Jerry Stanishewski was hired as the new police chief for the city of Eau Claire on November 6th. Update's Chelsea Emery has more on Stanishewski's journey to becoming police chief. Airplane passengers have lost legroom, hot meals, and personal space, and now they may be losing their peace and quiet too. The Federal Communications Commission is thinking about allowing cell phone use while planes are in flight. Within hours of the FCC's announcement, many cell phone companies voiced their support. Both American and United Airlines say they will wait for the FCC before making a decision. 2 teenage girls in Florida will not face charges in the death of a 12-year-old girl. They were accused of cyberbullying a classmate, Rebecca Sedgwick, who later committed suicide. The 2 young girls, only 12 and 14, who investigators say bullied Sedgwick for months with messages like, quote, "Why don't you go kill yourself," end quote, will no longer face charges. Both girls were charged with aggravated stalking after Sedgwick committed suicide in September. Polk County, Florida Sheriff Grady Judd says counseling is the, quote, "best outcome for juveniles," end quote. Sheriff Judd says dropping the criminal charges doesn't dilute the stance against bullying. He says they will continue to be tough on the crime, but that in this case they accomplished what was best for everyone involved. The final touches are being added to the new education building on the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire campus. Update News reporter Jessica Sharpie has more on what we can expect to see inside. Some documents in the JonBenet Ramsey case will be unsealed Friday despite objections from her father. A Colorado judge ordered the release of 18 pages that were sealed after a grand jury went home in 1999 without child abuse charges being filed against her parents. Half of the documents are on John Ramsey and the other half on Patsy Ramsey. John Ramsey's attorney says the public release of the allegations only served to further defame Ramsey and his wife. There could be changes coming with prescription drugs with hydrocodone. On Thursday, the Food and Drug Administration said they want new restrictions on the addictive painkiller, as it is the most prescribed drug in the U.S. The Drug Enforcement Administration puts hydrocodone as one of the most abused drugs in the country. The FDA says hydrocodone should have the same limits as other narcotic drugs on the market. They have not formally announced a decision. With the recent deaths of almost 600 dogs in the U.S., the Food and Drug Administration wants to help implement rules that make pet food safer. The FDA says the cause is unknown, but the deaths may be from dog treats imported from China. The new rules would require pet food sellers to follow procedures that prevent contamination. This would also protect pet owner health from foodborne illnesses that can be transferred to humans. Things have cooled down quite a bit, and it looks like these cooler temps are going to stick around. Tonight will be mostly cloudy with a low around 36. Southwest winds around 15 miles per hour will become northwest winds by midnight. Saturday will be partly sunny with a high near 44. Expected to be breezy with a northwest wind 15 to 20 miles per hour with gusts as high as 30 miles per hour. Saturday night will be mostly cloudy and things will cool down with a low around 27 with a west wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. Sunday will be mostly sunny with a high near 48. Fort McCoy is offering new online services to hunters so they can access land 30 miles east outside of La Crosse. The site will provide hunters with knowledge of hunting applications, regulations, and additional information for hunting and fishing. Hunters wishing to enter the site must have their Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources customer number. In the future, people will be able to apply for hunter permits on this site. The Blue Gold men's hockey team is looking to repeat their national title run this season. Update News reporter Jessica Sharpie has more on this story. Adrian Peterson and the Vikings hosted the Redskins last night. In the first quarter, Peterson opens the scoring with an 18-yard touchdown run. In the third quarter, Peterson helps the Vikings regain the lead with a 1-yard touchdown run. The Vikings kept the lead for good and went on to win the game 34-27. It's a busy weekend for Blue Gold sports. Women's volleyball plays UW-Whitewater in their first game in the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference Championship at Stevens Point at 5 p.m. today. Men's ice hockey takes on St. Olaf in Minnesota at 7 p.m. On Saturday, they play St. John's in Minnesota at 7 p.m. And women's ice hockey faces off against St. Catherine in Minnesota at 7:30 p.m. and again on Saturday at 2 p.m. The UW-Eau Claire football team suits up against UW-Oshkosh at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Also on Saturday, the men and women's swimming and diving teams compete against UW-La Crosse at 1 p.m. in McPhee. That's all for sports. Stay tuned for more Update News.